You're listening to another great podcast in the MyMac Podcasting Network.
TechFan podcast number 508. I'm Tim Robertson, joined by my friend in the UK named David. Hello, David.
Hello.
We
I'm
were
the same
just
David as the other times as well.
Well,
so.
I can't be assured of that. I can't physically see you, so I just assume. I mean, for all I know, Alexander has mastered your voice, and he's been doing the show for the last 2 years because you're kept in. Well, the real you is kept in like cryo.
Well, the joke we always make is many years ago there was a soap opera where they killed off the dad and buried him under the patio, and he was there for about 3 years before they found the body. So we always joke about, if somebody gets substituted, then go look under the patio.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, because a week from right now, as we record this, I'll actually be probably in Ohio still driving towards New York City.
Yep.
And you said how, people don't realize how big, because when you hear Pennsylvania, you probably don't think that it's that big of a state, but it's actually fairly large. And I said, so many people don't realize just how big the United States are. I mean, It is huge. And as an example, I was going to say, that it's your entire country is smaller than some states. Actually, 11 states are bigger than England, including Michigan. So 11 states are bigger than Britain, including Alaska, Texas, Oregon, Montana, which, by the way, almost no one lives in Montana. Wyoming, same thing. It's there's not a lot there. Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, California, and Michigan.
Yep.
A lot of people forget that Michigan also is the Upper Peninsula as well.
Yeah, in fact, mentally, I'd not thought of that either. But I'm looking at the map now, and I can see that. I'm looking at Pennsylvania here, and it's flipping huge. And Pennsylvania, because it kind of has this hokey country, the Amish and all of that.
Until you realize Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I mean, Pittsburgh. Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, most people don't, apart from knowing that it's a steel town, most people don't know how big Pittsburgh is outside the US, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm talking specifically from that perspective here. And I can see on the map that it's a huge conurbation. And,
when I drive to Ohio or to New York, the two places I'm in the longest is by far Pennsylvania, because you got to travel the entire length of it, and then Ohio is second.
Yeah.
You get to Ohio and you think, hey, we're almost home. No, you still got a long ass way to go.
And this is the thing. I mean, like you say, here in Britain, I mean, there's nowhere in the country you can't drive to in
a day.
Probably less. Well, in a day or less. Actually, you might be a long day, but you can. There's most places you can do in a day. I know certainly when I went up to from Manchester, where I live, to Balmoral, where the Queen's Palace is, which is, it's not really a palace, it's a big country house.
Yeah.
But it's up in Aberdeenshire, so it's quite far into Scotland. Now that took a whole day, but that's only because once you get past the line where Edinburgh and Glasgow is, basically the roads become very small and not very fast. I mean, people regularly walk from one end of the country to the other. It takes them a few days as a charity thing. And, that's how big Britain is. It's not very big at all. And so we kind of don't really get how large... I mean, obviously, you think about it. In the round, the United States and North America is a continent. So to go from one side to the other, you are crossing a continent. So, of course, it's massive. Yeah. And, of course, it takes ages to get anywhere. But...
Michigan is 3% larger than the United Kingdom. You guys are 243,610 square kilometers. In Michigan, just one state, is 250,493 square kilometers. Yeah. I mean, Michigan is a fairly large state. Obviously, it's the 11th largest in the U.S., but people just don't understand how big the United States is. This is what used to get me back in the 80s when, we'd have movies like Red Dawn and, another country invading the U.S. They don't realize how big this country is. I mean, it's not. Yeah. You could not invade the United States. It's just too big.
You could take over some of the cities, but everybody would just be able to melt into the countryside.
But the thing is, it's too far from anybody to adequately get troops here. How do you take that many troops to invade this country across the ocean? You're going to see them if they're going into Mexico or Canada. You're going to see them coming.
It's like you say, Red Dawn. It was like the
Cubans, I believe, they worked with the Russians and they parachuted into places.
Yeah, how big is Cuba? I mean, Cuba makes Britain look big.
Yes.
So, I guess if you filled it from edge to edge with people, maybe. But again, you're gonna see those coming. You're not gonna, because that was the thing. Red Dawn. It was a surprise attack, and they parachuted in this town in the middle of nowhere.
Well, they did all over the place, but the movie focuses on just one tiny little town, which is kind of small. It's like, why would they go there?
Well, yeah. Because they'd heard the Wolverines, obviously.
Well, obviously. It's, you look at a map, and they're just so inaccurate, like a globe. If you look at a globe, map makers have purposely made smaller countries larger on them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see them.
Yeah.
That's the
right,
scale is always so far off. Because you look at the U.S. and you look at some other countries in Europe and you're like, well, they're pretty big. No, they purposely made them larger so you can see them on a globe at scale. Otherwise, you'd barely see something like Italy. And in Africa, they purposely made smaller. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Because Africa is huge.
Well, it's to take a globe and represent it on a flat surface is quite difficult. So they use these different projections, but you can get these projections where they try and more accurately show the relative sizes of things, and it's quite surprising.
Yeah, it's because Europe shrinks on any map to very small compared to Russia or Asia or Africa or North America. It's very small, but because so many more people live there, that's educated, that's going to be looking at maps, they make it bigger.
Yeah. And
some people say that because of that, it was a subconscious effort to make, European culture more important on a map than it really is. Thus, you kind of diminish other people, make them less important. They had a spot on West Wing, 15 years ago that kind of showed that, and it kind of woke me up, and it made me actually go do a little bit of research and look into it. I was like, they kind of had a point. I don't know if the racial thing was there. I think it was more of, well, you can't see this stuff unless you make it bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a mix of these things, and all of these biases are subconscious, but definitely we tend to diminish things like Chinese culture and all the different cultures of the
Asia.
Of Asia and the rest of the the Philippines and all of those Pacific cultures as well, because everything is kind of Western centric, and when we talk about the West, we're talking about Europe and the United States. So,
Well, the way they made them bigger though is they reduced the size of the ocean.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing there, so they'll just make it look like the Pacific's smaller than it actually is, or the Atlantic.
The whales aren't going to complain.
No, they don't care. So this is TechFan. Let's talk about a little bit of tech news. Anything new with you? You buy anything new, or
I did.
What'd you get?
I got my annual bonus coming up, and I became aware that the one of the competitors to the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally. ROG stands for Republic of Games. It's an awful name.
Yes.
ROG Ally, which is effectively a handheld PC. It's more powerful than the Steam Deck. They're about to refresh it with a midlife model that fixes some of the criticisms of the original one. And I saw that and I thought, I wonder if that's affected the prices of the original one. And sure enough, it has. And I was able to pick up a brand new one in a box on eBay for a song for the same price I paid for my Steam Deck, basically, which is kind of half off. So I purchased it because I wanted to see what what this device was like, and also it's alleged to be, and I found out to be more powerful than the Steam Deck. And there's quite a few games I can't run on my Steam Deck because it's not quite up to it. I picked it up and I've been playing with it for the last few days.
How do you like it so far?
Well, so it's a game of two halves. Okay, it definitely runs much, much better than the Steam Deck. It has a much nicer screen. The resolution is slightly higher. It's a 1080p screen, but also as well the colours are much brighter and more vivid than they are on the Steam Deck. It's lighter than the Steam Deck. It feels a little bit nicer in the hand. It's very well put together, and all of that is great. And when it first came out, there were some teething problems with it in terms of the software stack and everything. They fixed most of that, so it's actually quite user-friendly now. So they have, basically, it runs Windows 11, but they have an application they call Armoury Crate, which runs on top of that and basically tries to give you like a Steam Deck-like experience. So whatever game stores you've got installed, it shows you the games as big icons like it does on the Steam Deck, and then it will fire up the appropriate launcher and run the game. When you click on them, it's very touch friendly, so obviously it's got a touch screen. So all of that is really good, but the problem is underneath it's still Windows. So to get it set up, it has much better specs than the Steam Deck. It has this AMD Ryzen processor, faster GPU, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gig SSD out the box. It's really easy to change the SSD, much easier it is than the Steam Deck. But the problem is it's Windows 11. So when I first got it, it took me probably half a day to get it up and running and actually get games on it, because I had to go through a whole load of Windows 11 updates, like you were with the PC.
Yeah.
I had to go through a whole load of Microsoft Store updates, and then I had to go through a whole load of Asus driver updates and firmware updates and things like that before it was ready to go. And then I had to install my games, which takes time as well. So that's kind of the downside. It's still a PC. If you're not careful, sometimes when you're playing it, there's buttons on the back, and I think I need to turn this off, but by default one of them is mapped to take you back to the desktop. So you can be playing a game and accidentally hit a button and all of a sudden you're facing the Windows desktop again. And sometimes the Armoury Crate software kind of locks up, presumably because of some conflict going on with Windows. So you can get in a situation where you can't get back to your game. It's got no keyboard, obviously, so you can't Alt-Tab back to the game. And if you end up on the desktop and the game's still running in the background, but that Armoury Crate software is locked up, then you can be kind of struggling to get back to your game. The pause and resume thing that you do on the Steam Deck, where you just hit the button and it brings you back to where you turned it off, is not as slick as it is on the Steam Deck, because obviously it's optimized to the hardware. On Windows it's not. So sometimes it comes back and the game doesn't come back properly, or doesn't come to the front. So you get all of those Windows style niggles, but the flip side of that is that it will run pretty much any game without compatibility issues. You can put any game store you want on there, and the software does a pretty nice job of integrating them all together. And it's a PC as well, so you can hook it into your, it's got USB-C on the top, so you can hook it into your monitor with USB-C and use it as a regular computer. So if you're traveling somewhere and then when you get there you need a laptop, then you can just use it as a laptop with a monitor if you want to, keyboard and mouse and all of that. So it has some advantages over the Steam Deck. Where it falls down is that tight integration.
And that kind of falls into what I think is core to video gaming. Yeah. Forget being a mobile device or whatever. Just as a core gaming, it's really hard to beat the Steam Deck, because what they did was integrate. It's Linux for those who don't know on Steam Deck. But what they did was they get rid of all the computer, in quotes, stuff. And just give you a pure portable game machine. You don't have to think about setting up, my controllers are going to work, what software it needs to download to run this game. It's all it's Steam. So if you've ever used Steam, that's all it is. It's so easy. And to download something, I did run. Well, let me back up and say there was one issue I ran into at one point in that the game that I downloaded, and it was in the Steam store, technically wasn't compatible with the Steam Deck, but users had said yes, it works, and it needed a CD key. So, you know, you had to kind of jump through hoops to get that working, but that was kind of my own fault because it wasn't designed for Steam Deck. So that was on me. But even yet, I think when it comes to gaming, ease of use to buy, download, and start playing a game and switching between games, you can't beat the Steam Deck. It's almost a perfect gaming machine. Now, does it need to upgrade? Boy, does it. Yeah. But you could say the same thing about the Nintendo Switch. I mean, it takes the computer stuff away. It's just gaming. And in some respects, I think the Steam Deck's actually easier to use than the Nintendo Switch. It's more logically laid out. That's the one thing I don't like about the Switch is that it's a little clunky to get between stuff. And it asks for passwords way too often. You're like, Jesus Christ, I was just in the store.
I know. What Valve has done with Steam, Steam and then the Steam Deck, Steam is a class-leading platform for selling gaming software.
I think it's probably the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, because I've played with a couple of the others. I've got the
EA one, and
I've got EA is a pain in the ass because even if you have a game in a different store, you still have to log into EA.
Yeah, you
and
still
this
have
is
to
a
create
problem
an
even on
account
Steam.
and link them and all that bullshit.
But I have the Epic Games Store on the Ally. I have the Good Old Games Store. They have a launcher now and everything. And yeah, Steam is by far and away the best. Because they can integrate very closely with their hardware, even though they're doing this magic trick of translating these Windows games so they run under Linux in the back end, and they do all of that transparently. It really is an amazing achievement. And if the Steam Deck was as powerful as the Ally, I wouldn't give the Ally a second look.
Yeah,
but it's not, and I've got quite a few games now that I want to play that I just can't play on the Steam Deck. So that was really why I thought I'd try this device out. I have a particular use case as well because I do travel, and when I'm going to the home office, I have to use my home office computer, and I need another computer as well. And the idea will be with this that I'll be able to take the Ally and then plug it in when I'm in the office and use that for the few bits of webmail and that sort of thing that I can't do on the home office machine, and it will be much better than bringing a computer with me. And again, if you want to watch video on the Steam Deck, suppose you say, I want to stick Netflix on there, and you can't. It's not easy.
No, well, that's why I said it's a gaming device. It's not trying to be an all-in-one everything, and that's the strength of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you don't mind dealing with Windows oddities and dealing with effectively having a handheld gaming PC, the ROG Ally is nice, particularly if you can get it at a decent price. But the Steam Deck the Steam Deck I would still recommend to most people if they said, I want to play PC games.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and put it this way, I've bought the Ally and I like it. I'm not selling my Steam Deck. I'm keeping it. No,
and I'm looking forward to the next generation of Steam Deck. I think number one, it needs to be a little faster. And number two, more importantly, it has to have a much better screen. It just does. I know that they came out with a kind of a 1.5 version with the OLED.
Yeah, with an OLED, which is meant to be a lot better, but then it's a lot more expensive.
Yeah, but no, it's the same price.
Oh, it's the same price as the original one.
Yeah. It's just OLED
but
now.
You can still get the LED ones for less.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, all props to. Let's face it, this device, the Ally, would not exist if Valve had not released the Steam Deck.
Valve created a whole new thing with this. Exactly. Now, remember, over a year ago, back in January of 23 at TechFan 485, I talked about the Logitech G Cloud gaming handheld, which looks very similar to what you've got. It's about the same size. It's got a better screen and blah, blah, blah. But it's cloud-based, i.e., it's basically connecting to your Xbox account, and it allows you to play your Xbox games on it, and it was terrible.
Yeah, that was an Android device as well, so it wasn't set up to do anything locally.
No.
Now, interestingly enough, the Asus, who makes the ROG Ally, do include 3 months of Xbox Ultimate, including the cloud gaming, in the box. So you can cloud game on this, and it's an excellent cloud game.
Well, I tell you, if you're into video games at all, you have to have Xbox Game Pass. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so much better. It's better than Sony's PlayStation Plus. And then Nintendo doesn't really have. They've got the subscription where you can play older games and stuff, and it kind of works. But I tell you what I'm really looking forward to, honestly, is they need to have on the next version of the Switch real compatibility with Wii games. And, you know, there's a lot of like older Zelda and Mario stuff that I would love to be able to play, but they just don't make it. You know, you can't buy it.
I have the one where they had Super Mario Galaxy, which
oh,
which
that's
was a Wii
3
game.
games on there, right?
Yeah, I know, but
I missed buying that, and I'm pissed because I really want it, because it also had Mario Sunshine on there,
Mario
which
Sunshine, which
is one of
also
my
really
favorite
good.
games.
Yeah, well, my favorite Mario game was Galaxy. And
Galaxy
so
and Sunshine are very similar.
Yeah, I've played a bit of Sunshine, but then I went back to Galaxy on the Switch, yeah, it's a really great experience. It's kind of weird that Nintendo is so conservative about delving back into its.
I don't understand it.
It's
like they've got
archive.
long-term plans that they never do.
Yeah, it's always like, whenever people ask them about this, it's just like, oh yeah, well, we are getting to that.
Super Mario All-Stars 3D which is the one that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it also has Mario 64 on there.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they made that a timed exclusive. If you didn't buy it in a short amount of time, too bad. They stopped making it.
Yeah. It's very odd.
Why? Oh, we hate money. What are you talking? Why can't I buy this? Because
I can only assume it's because they're worried that one day, you know, the magic money train will end, that they'll have another failed hardware release, and they'll need to fall back on this kind of archived IP that they're artificially holding back from the market. It's really weird. I mean, one of the other things that's nice about this device, because it runs Windows, is you can easily run emulators for anything you want on it. Whereas obviously on the Steam Deck it's much harder. I know lots of people do run EmuDeck and stuff like that on there, but you have to go into desktop mode and jump through all sorts of hoops. And this is one area where a Windows device has the advantage, because most of these emulators, if you're on a Windows device, you just install them and run them, and you're off to the races. And that's one of the other things I want to do with this. I want to be able to emulate later console. I want to be able to emulate the PS3 and the Xbox 360, because there's still loads of games I never played on there, and I won't be able to run them on this.
Yeah.
And you can't do that on the Steam Deck. It hasn't got the power. And secondly, even the older emulators, you have to go through a whole load of hoops to actually get those working properly, which I don't really have the time or interest to do.
Well, that's the other thing. My problem with anything other than the Steam Deck is, and you said this right at the beginning of your review, too much setup time. I don't have the time to be dinking around with something for a half a day just to be able to play games. It
was really frustrating, because I picked it up, I got home, put it on to charge, started setting it up, and it was like, you know, I don't know if you won't have done this because you're not a Windows guy, but you open up any new Windows 11 device, and there's loads of software that
you
needs
do know I've got 2
updates.
Windows machines, right?
Yeah, I know, but you don't do it that often. I probably do it a bit more than you do. But
sure, no question.
The update time to bring Windows up to date, it's very slow. The Windows updater is really kind of slow. You'd think it would go, just download and install. No, it sits there at 2%, 5% for one thing. You always get a few in the list that fail, and then you have to do them again. And so that's just core Windows. That's all the Windows updates, drivers, everything like that. But then to have it's a little bit like the Google Play Store now. To have there's a whole load of things in Windows that, including normally the stuff that the manufacturer provides, that have to come from the Microsoft Store. So then you've got to go through the same dance there, and it's the same thing. It doesn't seem to download and install stuff very quickly, and you've got to do all of that, and that's before you've even installed any of the game stores, and then obviously done the games installs, which themselves are long and lengthy because games are big. You know, typical game is what, 30, 40 gigabytes nowadays. A lot of them are over 100, the bigger ones. So that's the thing. But having said that, the advantage of the device is some games which I couldn't even think about playing on the Steam Deck, like for instance Starfield, which I've also wanted to play, will run very, very nicely on this. Now, the only other, for anybody who's thinking, oh, that sounds interesting, the one downside, the real downside, apart from what I've already said over the Steam Deck, is battery life. Yeah, the battery is the same size as the Steam Deck, and the device is more powerful. So, you don't get a lot of battery life out of this.
I also heard that it's a little bit noisy, and that the fans kick on a little bit more often.
Well, the fans kick on if you put it in the turbo mode, which is sometimes what you have to. Well, yeah. So the problem is that a lot of people who review this device are PC gamers, and you know what PC gamers are like? Are bitches for the absolute frame rate. So they whack everything up to maximum, and if you do that and you turn up the turbo thing, I think it runs at 35 watts or something. Yes, you will have probably less than an hour battery life, and the fans will be on all the time because you're running it full pelt. And certainly when you plug it into a decent charger, it puts itself in that mode to give you the best performance. And yes, you will hear the fans then, but the reality is that if you're prepared to lower the settings and reduce the frame rate, you don't get that a lot of time. And even on full fat AAA games, it's just a case of being prepared to accept lower fidelity. It still looks better than the Steam Deck normally in those cases. But yes, if you whack everything up to maximum, it's quite easy. They have a hardware switch that gives you a little control panel, and you can set everything up to whatever you want, brightness and thermal performance and all of that sort of thing to get the performance you want from your game. But yeah, if you put it on 35 watts, you're going to hear the fans, and they are quite noisy. But having said that, on the Steam Deck, when it does that as well, it's also quite noisy.
It gets hot
and it gets noisy.
It does.
And you are effectively, with both these devices, you're running a full Windows laptop in a tiny handheld case.
Yeah.
And that's going to affect the fans, it's going to affect your battery.
Mm-hmm.
You would, for anybody who wants to play for a long time on this with a relatively recent game and get decent battery life, you're going to need an external pack.
Yes.
Because it has much worse battery life than the Steam Deck.
I think that the Steam Deck and devices of its ilk are better suited to, and I know everybody seems to want to play the latest and greatest games. I think the handheld PC market is really, video game market, I should say, clarify that, is really designed best for older games that aren't as graphic intensive as the new ones.
Yeah.
And the game that I keep telling David he needs to download and buy because it's cheap and he just refuses to do it because he hates me is The Saboteur.
Oh, it's on Game Pass, so I will be playing it now because I don't need to buy it.
Well, it was like $7. I mean, I could play that game for 4 hours. My hands were cramped, and I would still have half my battery life because it just doesn't take, even though it looks beautiful and all that, it just doesn't take a whole bunch of power. It was a PS3 game. So,
exactly. Yeah.
There's so many games that you guys can be playing on these devices that you never played when they were new. They're dirt cheap, or if not free now with Game Pass, although free because it's a subscription service, you're paying for it. You have an unlimited of hours worth of fantastic games to play.
Yeah, and let me just be clear. With Game Pass Ultimate, you can stream the games from the cloud, or you can download them to your PC.
Always download.
You don't. Yeah. Well, I always prefer to do that, but there are some. If you're, for instance, if you want to try a new game, and the good thing about Game Pass is they come out straight away. The new Call of Duty will come out on Game Pass Cloud straight away. So if you want to try it without downloading it, if you don't have space in your device, whatever, and play it in the cloud, as long as you've got a decent internet connection, you can see what it's like. But yes, that is a lot of people hear Game Pass and they assume it's all cloud streaming. It's not. You can download these games and install them locally. Obviously, if you cease your subscription, you can't play them anymore. But while you're subscribed, it's like Netflix for games, and it's incredible value.
Yeah, it really is. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you're not limited to just that handheld. If you have a PC, you can download the stuff there. If you have an Xbox, you can play stuff there.
And again,
it's a really good service.
Yeah, one of the beauties I found with Steam is that I could install games that I'd been playing on my Steam Deck, and I installed them on the Ally under Steam, and I'm exactly where I was in the game because all of that save stuff and everything is saved to the cloud, and I just pick it up and start playing from where I was, which was great.
I do wonder how well Microsoft's doing when it comes to hardware game sales. I know they're well, I just Googled it, and as of February, the PS5 sold 52.65 million units in 38 months, while the Xbox Series XJS, whatever, sold 27 million. So it's not like they're going broke selling these, but that's half.
Yeah. I think they are gradually... No, they don't want to admit it because the gamers will go mad, but they are gradually pivoting away from console hardware.
Well, here's the problem that Microsoft has had post original Xbox. It was, well, I'll say after Xbox 360. Now, we know they named the Xbox the 360 because PS3 was coming out and they didn't want Xbox 2 because now it sounds like...
Yeah.
So, okay, fine, whatever. But this newest generation and the one right before it, the naming system was so convoluted that people couldn't... Why would you release a brand new console and then a cheaper version for half the cost that does 90% of the stuff the more expensive one does? They just... Whoever the product managers are of the Xbox hardware are morons. They're just morons. What they should have done is not try to go hardware for hardware against the Sony brand. And Sony's done it right. PlayStation 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how you do it. There's no ambiguity there. You don't have to have a chart and a spreadsheet to figure out what I'm buying this game. Does it work on the hardware that I've got? I don't know. And naming conventions mean something, people. It really does.
Well, yeah, the naming was confusing because they went from the Xbox 360 to Xbox One.
And then Xbox S.
Yeah, but that's it. But even the Xbox One came in different versions. And then the next one after that was the Xbox Series X and Series S. And that's kind of subtle.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people confuse the X because the Xbox One I think came in an X version as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it is confusing. But I suspect what's going to happen is the next Xbox will not be an Xbox. It won't be a separate platform because why should you? They've already got a platform. It's Windows, right? What they need to do is to get that Steam Deck like gaming experience on a PC. Right?
Well, more than that, David, I think that they need to pivot away from being a hardware company and being a software store.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Xbox Game Pass works on anything. You're on a Mac, it works. If you're on a PC, it works.
Yeah, that's probably more difficult because, to support different platforms and work that way is, Valve puts a lot of effort into that and they really pull it off. But I don't think that's an easy thing to do. I think... What they should do is they should basically produce the next Xbox, and it basically inside is a PC with decent hardware specs. And then what they do is they have the Game Pass store running on it, but the Game Pass store is set up so that all of this kind of fiddling around you have to do to get games working properly on a Windows machine is abstracted away so you don't see it. Just in the same way that Steam does on the Steam Deck. So, they are taking a Windows game, they're installing it to a Linux system and with a translation layer, and sometimes you see it when you install it, it'll say it's installing DirectX this or whatever. They're putting all of that stuff in there, and then they work to make sure that you don't have to do anything.
No.
It just works. Now, Microsoft clearly should be able to do that for a Windows PC. And once they've done that, then they can offer it for Windows, but then they can also have their own hardware for people who don't want a PC. And so anybody who wants to play PC games from Xbox Game Pass will just buy either their little box that's effectively a small PC inside, and then they could also do a handheld version, effectively have their version of this device I've just bought.
Or it's the same thing.
Or it would be running the same software. You just dock it
and it works that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Apple has shown, and so has AMD recently, that you can have extremely high-powered, great battery life, CPUs and GPUs, system on a chip, on a handheld device. Look at the new iPad Pro.
Yeah,
and connect it to a device or use it mobile, and you're still going to get great thermal cooling, right? You're going to get all the performance in the world, more than most people actually need. Why not do that with the new Xbox? And maybe even Sony, because as great as the PS5 is, Sony is really missing out on the handheld market. They have nothing there, nothing at all.
Yeah, I think they
handheld being able to dock it is the future of video games. Take it with you.
Yeah, I think Sony are very much resisting that. I think they've decided after the Vita that handheld's not for them. And that's
I think
because
it was,
they've got
but you got to remember the Vita was 15 years ago. I think they are going to come out with something. I mean, they just did. It's that weird. It connects to your Xbox and it has to physically be on the same network. Or
basically, it's a local cloud gaming from your PS5,
and it doesn't really work.
I think that demonstrates their mindset. I think their mindset is it has to be PS5 everywhere all the time. I don't think they're thinking, oh, well, if we do a handheld, that's another platform, and we don't want another platform. They're not getting what people are doing now.
Right.
And from Microsoft's advantage, these new chips, these new Qualcomm chips that have just come out, these new Snapdragon X's, they're effectively, they were designed by the same people who designed the M series chips at Apple who left. Right, they're effectively the same class of device. That would be perfect for a handheld gaming device. They run
the
Windows.
New AMD stuff is really good too.
Yeah,
but
Intel I'd be interested to see if it can keep up with the Qualcomm because Qualcomm is ARM, and we know from the M series chips that Apple have developed that's probably the future of computing. Yeah.
So let's move on, David. I spoke a few times in the last year that I've been kind of searching for the next thing I want to get into. When we started TechFan back in 2010, I just kind of got into the arcade stuff, buying actual arcade machines. I sold one of them recently. And I still have one arcade machine here. And I also have a digital pinball. I thought maybe digital pinball would be the next thing, but it's for me, but it's not really. No. I haven't turned it on, and I don't know how long at this point. But I've been searching around for what the next thing I want to get into in tech. And I think I found it. All thanks to TikTok, of course. If you like something on TikTok and you go and you watch that person's other videos on the same subject, or if they're a creator and that's their, shtick, that's what they talk about.
Then the algorithm knows you.
It knows, and it starts kicking more of that stuff towards you. And I've been watching a lot in the last month and a half of 3D printing. And it always was very interesting to me, but I used to watch some videos and it was so complex. I'm like, I don't want to be messing with the software and the hardware, and it didn't appeal to me. Well, things have changed in the last year or so, in that 3D printing has gotten a lot easier, and a lot of that is due to a company called Bambu Labs. And so I've been watching a lot of videos with about Bambu Labs' hardware and software. It runs on Mac, it runs on PC, but it's really about the 3D printer. And when I get back from New York, I'm going to order and start playing with the Bambu Labs P1S. It's a 3D printer. I've got place for it now, strong internet, so I'm not worried about connecting to it and stuff. And I'm going to get the add-on that you can put up to 4 filaments on top of it. It looks pretty cool. But
that's not included with the default device, is it?
No. There's a sale going on right now, and it's still going to be there. I checked when I get back from New York. I don't want to order it now and then have it show up early and it's sitting on my porch for a couple days.
Yeah.
But for $849, the device itself is $599, but for $849 I get that with this. It's called the AMS thing that sticks on top.
You don't want the cheap ones?
No. If I'm going to get one, I don't
cheap
want
ones
the.
Look like they've taken the expensive one and taken all the body away.
Yes, exactly, and it's just there. Plus, I have cats.
That's funny.
From all the stuff I've been reading and watching, I would say this is more prosumer. Yeah. It's not, the pro one. But there's so many things you could download now when it comes to the 3D models and effectively change a little bit if you need to. But here's an example. There's a whole page that I discovered that has nothing but screws that you could print. Just screws on every size, length, you name it. And it's free to download. It's kind of like CAD files, but not really. You can download it, open it in the software, position it how you want, hit print, and it just does it.
So if you're printing screws, does it make those out of plastic? Or
Yes.
can you... Right, but they still work?
Sure.
Okay.
Because if you're making something, everything's plastic, but...
Well, screws are tend to be metal, but...
Well, it depends on I'm not going to use it for brake rotors or anything. But,
right, okay.
But if I'm building a model that needs those screws...
If you're building something that just holds something in place, then
it's fine.
I get you.
Yeah.
So I'm thank you, because I'm now very interested in this. I have a 3D printer that I bought maybe 4 years ago.
Right.
And I don't even remember, a couple of years back, Charlotte had a school project where she had to make something with DNA on it, I think, something like that. And we got this thing out, we set it up, we connected the computer, and we actually managed to print something that she used for her project. It was a little plastic doodad that had these, I'm sure it was cells or DNA or something like that, and she was meant to make it, and I said, well, why don't we 3D print it? But man, was it a pain in the neck.
Mm-hmm.
It really was. Getting the printer going, and the one I had it's an entry level one, but it wasn't like a complete hobbyist one. But getting it going, you get it working, took a lot of trial and error. And the problem is that if it's not seamless and something goes wrong, when you start a print, they take flipping ages. It took like 4 hours to print this little plastic chunk. Yeah. And if something goes wrong during that process, or you haven't realised you've done something, there's something you've not done, and then it's going to affect it, then you lose all that time because the print is no good.
Yep.
And you've got to the trial and error process, the time cycle on that is hard. So I've always been waiting for somebody to basically come up where they've solved this and it's all plug and play.
A Mac.
And the software basically makes it work, because the software combined with the hardware fixes all the problems. Everyone knows what the general problems are, and they go, they've built the integration such that it's as reliable as any other printer.
That's exactly what I've been waiting for. I didn't want something that I'm spending more time just getting the thing to do what it's supposed to do than actually printing. And this thing prints about 1,000 times faster than the one you have. But and the original printers, I didn't like when it printed something, because you could see they were like
the lines
and stuff, and I was like, well, that looks like shit. What they don't do that anymore. You can get filament that doesn't do that. The bed itself rises and goes up and down instead of the print head itself, which is way better. This is kind of what I've been waiting for. I think I'm still one generation behind where I'd super be comfortable and be able to do a whole lot of stuff, but I'm going to take the plunge, for $1,000, because I'm going to, I'll buy some filaments and all that stuff. For $1,000, I think this could be maybe my next big thing. And Cole is actually kind of excited about getting one too.
So that's what I was going to ask you, because I know, I mean, you've got this bent in your house already, because I know Julie's really big onto the Cricut stuff, which is a similar sort of different output, but is a similar sort of thing. It's about having devices that make the process easier.
Yes.
And the Cricut is very much the market leader in, easy plug and play type stuff.
Yeah, that's a CNC machine for vinyl rather than wood or metal.
But what are you going to what are you looking to make with these things? Because we've all, anybody who's got one of these, I'm sure, has done the plastic tchotchkes, key rings, and that sort of thing. But actually, what are you looking to?
Initially, I wanted. I don't know yet. I'm looking for inspiration, but that's not really my concern, because I always find something to do with stuff like this. And I would just point at this podcast as an example. I started My Mac Magazine as a digital download back in '95. And my initial thought was I want to hone my writing abilities. And I'll start with this where I write some, how-tos and some product reviews on Mac software. And it would just be fun. That's all it's going to be. But it's a primer for me to do something else. Well, I found that once I started doing it, it became much more than just me. And the inspiration, because I was already doing it, was constantly there. I mean, all of that led to what we're doing today, podcasting.
Yeah.
So what am I going to make? I don't know yet. I know I want to make some classic video game characters. I want to play with Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, make those kind of things, just to put on a shelf and to look at, because this does multicolor printing.
Well, yeah, this is the other thing. The one I have just has a single spool.
Yeah, so you have to change the spool out if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas these ones, have all the stuff you need for up to 4 colors, so you can mix and match. And
I watched this guy, and he made it hollow, so it didn't weigh 1,000 pounds. But he made a Spider-Man mask that, like Tobey Maguire's, the head of Spider-Man. Yeah. And it was only 3 colors: red, black, and white, because of the eyes. And when it came out, it was amazing. And he did like really close-up video of it and rotating it. It was freaking amazing. And I was like, who wouldn't, if you're a geeky guy, who wouldn't want that on a shelf?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, if you went to the store and bought it in exactly the same quality, it'd probably cost you $80 to $100. It was that good. And it took him, and he did it on the Bambu Labs P1S, because that's what I'm looking at. It took him like 2 hours to print the whole thing. And it's full-size head, dude.
I can't. That's what's amazing me. I'm looking at this. I can't believe how fast these things are.
The generational leap is amazing, and it's really a lot. It looks like Bambu Labs, from everything I've been reading, is kind of at the forefront of this.
I mean, I probably wouldn't spend the sort of money you're looking at the full fat one, but I am kind of tempted by the entry level one, even though it's basically caseless and just stands.
Well, the reason I don't want that one is because of our cats.
Yeah, which is not a problem I have, but obviously those ones are much more reasonably priced.
Yeah.
Though the bed looks quite small.
It is. You're limited to
the bed size constrains what you can print with it.
Right. I'm not printing a full Iron Man armor with this thing, although I could, because I can do the screws and make it that way and put it all together. But it would be in pieces.
They have, even the mini one here, they have an image of them printing it looks like the Hogwarts castle.
Yes.
With 3 different filaments, and it just looks absolutely awesome.
Yeah. And so that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to get into. I'm looking at replacing my desk, but I'm going to replace my desk with a thicker, nicer wood. This is particle board I've had for 15 years, but I'm going to use the same legs and everything. And cable management's going to be kind of at the forefront of me designing my new desk.
I could you say 3D, that every time you change your desk.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is, with the 3D printer, I can make cable management that works for me, not the ones you can get on Amazon that, that's too big or that's not big enough. I can make my own. So it's stuff like that I think it will come in handy. I can make accessories for a car, for instance, a little stand that could hold something in my car. There's all kinds of neat things that you could print. And half of them you don't have to design yourself. More than half, most of it. It's all online.
Because the people who are experts at this, they're very good at sharing their files.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a big community around 3D printing where they share their files. Yeah, you print it now.
Yeah.
And to me, that's another kind of a big plus, that I'm getting into it still relatively early when it comes to 3D printing, I think. But not so early that it's a pain in the ass to do anything. And that's exactly what you were talking about.
I look forward to your Etsy store becoming available.
Yes, eventually. So that's on my horizon. We'll see. You guys listen to the show. By the time I re-record the next episode, because we're skipping a week next week, so the next show is going to be Geeks Pub in 2 weeks, and then we're 3 weeks away from doing this at the earliest. So I should have it by then, and maybe have played with it some. This kind of pisses me off. So the last thing we're going to talk about, and we do have feedback we'll get to in a second from John Nemo. we talked about the Humane pen, the wearable AI that simply does not work. It doesn't do anything that it was rumored and projected to do and what the company said it was going to do in their press releases. It's pretty much garbage, right? We agree with that. It's not really AI in a pen. It's been a colossal failure.
Yeah, and even the Rabbit, which is the cheaper one that people were raving about, which is basically does the same thing for much, much less money. Lots of people have bought them and have said, yeah, it's fine, but I don't use it because it doesn't work well enough, and it doesn't do anything better than my phone.
So it's $700. It's only sold 10,000 units, and that was all people ordering it before it was released.
Yeah.
Nobody has bought this. Nobody has bought this since the reviews came out and they released it. Nobody is going out there, or those who are going to make a TikTok video making fun of it. It's $700. Oh, by the way,
you need a subscription,
which is $25 a month. 20. So it's more than
that's $1,000. That's $1,000 first year
for the first year. Yeah, exactly. It's nobody's going to do this, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, what are they doing now? Oh, they want to sell the company for $1 billion. Who? And HP is reportedly one of the companies they're in talks with. HP is the dumbest company when it comes to buying stuff. Remember when they bought Palm?
They bought Palm. They sued Autonomy after they bought them because they felt that it wasn't good value. It's like, well, yeah, but you should have done the due diligence beforehand. They have a history of...
they spent $1.2 billion, all cash deal, for Palm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they killed it within a year.
Yeah, exactly. It was just literally burning money, but fine, big companies burn money all the time. It's fine, but the problem is they put all those people out of work at the same time. That's the real problem. I don't understand why big companies keep doing this.
Why does anybody think that this is what are you buying? There's no proprietary technology in this thing. None.
No.
I think it's all fake. I think they faked this device. I really do. It gets terrible battery life. The laser thing's crap.
They can't see outside.
Yeah, it can't. It's awful. Why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you buy them? What are you? So are you going to buy management? Is that what you want? The same managers who, by the way, discouraged anybody saying negative anything. They fired people that had concerns about the product and took them to management. They were like, "Hey, nope, fired."
Yeah, and apparently it's a husband and wife team who run this company, but the guy was ex-Apple, and this is one of the reasons he left Apple, is apparently he was impossible to work with.
Yeah, he couldn't take criticism.
He couldn't take criticism, yeah. And
great product managers don't care about their personal feelings. They want to make a great product. And whatever the problems are, no matter how hard it is to solve, they're going to get there. They're going to make the product as great as possible, which is what Steve Jobs is. That and having really good taste. That's what Steve Jobs was great at. That's what's missing at Apple now. But this guy, he left Apple because nobody liked him there. He's like, ugh, this guy's something else. That's who HP wants in their company.
I don't understand it, and I don't understand why they would want to put out so much money, because it's like you say, what you're acquiring, the product is literally a joke.
It is a joke. So what are you acquiring? There's no proprietary technology there.
No.
The PR on the device, it's simply awful. You're going to buy something that everyone's making fun of for $1 billion, really?
And even if it worked better, even if it was comparable to your phone, it's still comparable to your phone. You know that this class of devices are going to get Sherlocked out of existence within a few years, probably within the next 18 months.
Probably within the next week, because Apple's going to come out with something.
Well, maybe.
It's a joke. I don't. Yeah. It actually kind of pisses me off. If I was a stockholder in HP, if they moved ahead, I would call for the firing of the entire executive team.
Well, okay, let's just play devil's advocate for a moment. This is a rumour that HP are looking to do it, and it could well be the rumour has been put out there by Humane to try and drum up interest. It could be they approached HP, and maybe HP told them to go away, and then Humane have leaked that to the press to try and make the company sound like attractive to investors. Because
it could be.
There are some dumb tech bro investors in Silicon Valley who will go, "Oh, HP are interested. We must get there first. Let's ring up Humane, offer them $650 million now, and do the deal before HP gets a chance." So there could be a lot of that going on. So let's not necessarily pillory HP unless they absolutely do it. But the problem is people buy it from HP because they've done it before. They've bought, and Microsoft as well. Microsoft bought Nokia for something like $7 billion and shut the whole thing down within 2 years.
Well,
it was...
Yes, but it was a terrible purchase. But really they really thought that between Windows Phone software and Nokia's, let's be honest, amazing hardware that they were building for years, that they would be able to compete with the iPhone.
Yeah,
they just
at least
didn't
with Microsoft,
realize what they were up against.
Yeah, at least with Microsoft, you can say, well, there was something worth paying. Whether it was worth paying what they paid for it is a different question. But there was something worth buying. There was value.
There. The people that you were going to get with the Nokia purchase, especially from the hardware part, I can see why they did it. The problem with that purchase was Microsoft still did not understand what they were competing with against Apple and Android. They just didn't get it. They didn't realize they were already 2 generations behind with their own software, and there was no catching up at that point. There was zero chance that they were going to. That was a desperation purchase. In which scenario is HP's like, oh my God, everyone's talking about AI, we have nothing. Well, here's this company. Let's do that. That's the only reason that they could possibly be thinking about spending that much money on a joke of a product, and from all intents and purposes, a joke of a management team that simply doesn't know what they're doing. They should not be in charge of anything.
Yeah.
They're very good at raising VC, that's for sure. But other than that,
I think that it's like the blind leading the blind.
Exactly.
When it comes to that sort of people and VC money. VC guys are gamblers.
Yeah.
They will throw the money they've got at the wall in the hope that some of it sticks and makes them a fortune.
Yep.
They are not. Everyone thinks, oh, those guys on Shark Tank know what they're doing. They are not.
They don't.
They don't.
No.
They're not. They're nowhere near as savvy.
Well, did
as
you know that I think I read something that of all the people that go on Shark Tank and they get the investment, something like 3% actually are successful. The rest, the 97%. Because go watch either the English or the American version. Go watch Shark Tank and look at the things that they're buying into, and then do a Google search to see how good that product became. Almost none of it. None of it.
Yep. No. It's in fact on Dragon's Den, which is our version here.
It's the same show.
Yeah, it is. They had some guys come on this series who had been there about 7 or 8 years before, and they hadn't invested in the last one. They invested this time, and I just thought, well, why?
Why?
I mean,
they were obviously failures before.
Compared to the American version, I mean, our version is kind of is very much tin pot. The quantities of money invested are trivially small. Yeah, they don't really make a lot of difference.
No,
but it's like you say, out of the 10, well, I think it's 10 or 15 years that Dragon's Den's been on in the UK. There's maybe been 2-3 successes out of it. Same with The Apprentice. We have Alan Sugar, who's a British businessman, the guy behind Amstrad, who does The Apprentice here, and he now they've changed to it. They don't. It's not a job with him. It's for many years now. It's been an investment in their companies, and most of these companies have disappeared without a trace. For all they're meant to be, savvy business investments from these incredibly intelligent businessmen. That's what entrepreneurship is about. It is gambling, because there's a lot of things that can affect the success of anything. It's not just whether you've got something that's good, it's whether you've got something good and you've got the right market approach and you're doing it at the right time and you know what you're doing and you don't make dumb mistakes and you're not an ex-Apple guy who was nearly fired because...
Right.
And you don't get undercut on your market by something that does exactly the same as yours, but it does it for a quarter of the price.
It's insulting to me that they think that their product or their company is worth anything.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, the only thing I admire is the chutzpah.
That's it.
Of actually saying, after this thing has been virtually a literal dumpster fire. I mean, Marcus Brownlee said it was the worst thing he'd ever reviewed.
Yes.
Oh, he said it was virtually unreviewable.
Yep.
Right. To have the chutzpah to then go and be hawking that round big corporations and say, well, we're up for sale, and we think £1 billion is what $1 billion is what we're worth. It's just you have to admire. I mean, it's blind arrogance. It's not chutzpah. Yeah, but you have to at least go, well, okay, that's a thing. If nothing else, you have to go, well, that's a thing. But yes,
I just want to be in a room with them and go, dude, you're a joke. Now, to be fair, he did ship a product that doesn't work.
Yeah, only sold 10,000.
Ugh, it's an embarrassment. John Nemo sent in some feedback. Thanks to you, David. He did.
This is. We were talking when the new iPads came out about them, and I said, you know what? If you want a new iPad now, take a look at older iPads, because we talked about how having the M4 chip in the current iPad Pro doesn't really mean very much, because the iPad only does some things well, and those things are generally not constrained by processing power. So John said, good morning and afternoon. I just dropped off at FedEx my dead battery old iPad because the new replacement one from AppleCare has been here for a few days. It is even better than the other one when it was new, believe it or not, because the other one was a refurb but not from Apple, and this new replacement on AppleCare is sensational. This is because I said they can't change the battery on an iPad.
Right. They just give you a new iPad.
They just give you a new one. So that's what he's done, yeah. Even though it's a 2018 model, it's a screamer. 12.9 inch, 256 gig, best piece of equipment I've ever owned. Thanks again, David, for inspiring me to do this. And the coincidence, my old one dying right after I heard this commentary. And of course, thanks to Tim for insisting that everyone gets AppleCare. Always, no exceptions. Keep the great shows coming.
Yeah, get AppleCare. It's worth it. Yeah,
in fact, Alexander just came to me last night and he said, I don't think my iPhone 14 Pro is charging properly. I think I might need to get the battery changed. So I had a look at the health thing, and he's on 84%, so that's kind of, but it was charging slowly. It turned out it was his cable that was broken, rather than the actual iPad. And also, I think he had fluff.
Well, get him a wireless charger, dude. It's so much faster and easier.
Yeah, I am actually. I
don't know if it's faster, but it's easier. You just put it on there.
The thing is you don't, with the wireless charger, it doesn't matter that it charges more slowly, because you're generally not waiting to use it. You're normally putting it on overnight. So yeah, I think I might sort that out for him. The only other thing I'd say on iPads is that I had an opportunity. I'm one of these people who goes around Goodwill and CEX and places like that, and sometimes picks up old technology. I bought a second gen 12.9 iPad, as well as my new one, my Air, and I have to say this thing is from 2017. For 90% of things done on my iPad, it's just as good as my new one.
Yep, that's the thing with the iPad. I don't know anybody who's like waiting for the new iPad because it's going to be so much more. I think when your iPad dies is when you go buy a new one.
Yeah,
that's the iPod or iPad. So, it's not like the iPod that, I want the next one because it's going to have more capacity, Capacity, we're at the point now it really doesn't make any difference.
Well, this old one I bought actually has more capacity than my new iPad, because it's a 256 gig. That's a real reason I picked it up. I thought, if I'm traveling and I want to take the iPad with me and I want to fill it full of movies, I'll take that one rather than the new one, because it's got more space on it. You know, because
And a
watching
bigger
movies
screen
is
looks nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting. I didn't realise how much smaller the 12.9-inch iPads got in 2018 compared to the old one.
Yep.
It's a chunky boy.
Yes.
But actually, it feels quite nice for that. You know, it feels
No
substantial.
question.
So
Yep.
yeah.
So with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of TechFan. John, thank you very much for the feedback. We welcome feedback from any of our listeners. Real easy to do. Send an email to theshow@techfanpodcast.com. You can find TechFan Podcast both on Facebook, and it's kind of on Twitter, but it's under MyMac. There is a TechFan one, but don't bother following it because I don't use it anymore. So everything is under MyMac, under Twitter, and pretty much everywhere else, by the way. You can watch this show, but, not really watching it because we do upload the audio to YouTube. So if you do a search for TechFan Podcast, you will find some recent episodes that just leave it up in your browser and listen to it that way while you're browsing around on the internet. David, thank you very much for being here this week. I'll see you in 2 weeks on Geeks Pub. We got some really fun stuff to talk about. We're getting real close to Deadpool and Wolverine coming out, and we're going to kind of go over all the geeky stuff happening in the universe. See you then.
Enjoy your holiday.